Sunday. Side by side at the microphone, from the green light to the speed trap, Gregarino and Joe D calls them as they seize them, and you better believe them. Hear relevant news, biased opinion, and outright nonsense regarding every aspect of automotive culture. Gasp with mechanical trickery never before broadcast over FCC-regulated airwaves. Thrilled to the explosive tension as Ray and Joe cuss each other down track, barrel roll across the finish line, laughing at certain disaster as they shake hands with the devil. All that and so much more at high noon this Sunday on the Motormouth Radio Hour. Call in and speak live with the Wizards of Speed and the Live Feed, Ray Garino and Joe D. Bring the whole family. Kids under 12 get in free every Sunday at noon on WHBC. Take the Hempstead Turnpike to the Meadowbrook Parkway and look for the no parking on the expressway and no express service on the Parkway sign. Go right on Highway 24 to Garden City. $2 all-day parking includes pit pass.
Alrighty, folks, you've tuned into Motormouth Radio, Long Island and Connecticut's only automotive talk show here on the radio dials with your host, Ray Guarino, co-host Chris Switzer. And I got to tell you, folks, before he opens his mouth, here's a man who'll not only pick metric when I grab American, but he'll also cut his hair when I grow mine. Mr. Chris Switzer, how are you?
Thank you, Ray. And I've also realized that we're not the only radio station that plays any sort of automotive talk show in the state of Connecticut. There are others, so we have to go over and single them out and listen to what they're doing. But yeah, I did a little bit of research and I found there are others.
I wish you would have told me that before I made the grand assumption that you gave me last week.
Yeah, but, I thought there were, but unfortunately, no, there are more. But we'll have to listen to them and see what they're doing. Because Can they be that funny? Can they be that informative? I don't think so. I think this is the funniest and the most informative automotive talk show you're going to find. Yes.
Let's ask a man who would know, someone who's impartial, someone who has the fortitude that anybody would believe because he is a stand-up guy. How about our guest, Billy Velvet? Billy G., what do you think?
Billy!
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm happy to be part of the proceedings today.
Yes, we're so good. We're glad to have you. Now.
Yeah, so I'm here to be the referee, I gather.
We can play nice.
Yes, and a good one, no less. Good referee.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone with knowledge and foresight and good taste. And you're here.
I started to look around the room. I said, who are they talking about?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. So as other people can look around the room and get involved with this, if you would like to call and get involved, talk with us on the show, you can call our temporary number, 516-256-9510. Check us out on the web, Facebook, and on Twitter at Motormouth Radio, and of course on Instagram, which is Joe's favorite, __ Motormouth Radio, where we post the goings on of all the crazy stuff we get involved with. We're still waiting for Chris's pictures to get up there, but we'll embrace them when they show up.
Yes, it is. It's been a scholastic nightmare for me during the week, and it's not going to get any better this week. But we will try. We will try our best to step back into the Motormouth Radio mayhem during the week.
Right.
And see what we can do. But I have been working on vehicles, and Billy, I'm glad you're here because sometimes I need another noggin. I need another noggin to delve into some of the strangeness, some of the strange problems that happen to me during the course of an automotive repair, and this is no different. We are going to shoot holes in two of our favorite theories. One of our favorite theories is the Sinzu. The Sinzu theory, right? The car was working fine. Sinzu did this. Now the car's not working very well. So that's the first one.
Yeah.
And the second one is our Mikey T favorite. It's the last thing you touched.
Always
We're going to shoot both of these theories down. And here's the reason why. I did the brake job on the 93 LeBaron. And the brake job was extensive. We discussed it in past episodes of this fine upstanding program. And got in the car to do the test, to drive the car around and stop in the most strangest places and go down hills and up hills and try and just use the brakes as much as I can, go through that Chuck Yeager test that we like to and do so well.
There's a name for it. There's a name for that. Remember, I brought that into the show years ago after I globbed it off a TV show.
Italian tune-up?
No. That's the one that you brought in. It's the danger drive.
The danger drive, correct.
That's that drive you take after you've changed the headers or the clutch or the carburetor or the fuel system or the brakes, and you don't know what's going to happen. And of course, you go down a hill and through a tunnel or around school children and nuns, and
that's quite a danger drive you got there. So yes, this is what I was doing, and in the process of driving, I had the radio off. Well, once I got far enough away from the house, somewhere in the next state, I turned around to come back. Everything was fine. The car stopped the way it should. The emergency brake worked well, in a surprise and a shock, but it did all work the way it was supposed to. So to enjoy my drive, I turned the radio on. And you know what I heard? Nothing.
All right.
No radio. None. But now I'm thinking to myself, okay, pop the fuse, whatever the heck. I pull into a parking lot. I pop the fuse cover off the dash, and on the back of it, Chrysler conveniently put the fuse designations and where they go and what they do. And I found the radio fuse and popped the 10-amp fuse out, looked at it. It looked perfectly fine, put it back in, closed it up, and I took off. Now I'm bopping along. I'm still trying to futz with the radio. I'm getting no display and I'm getting no sound. I'm getting no signal, no hiss, nothing. But as a goof, I took a tape that was in the glove box out and stuffed it in there thinking it was going to do nothing. Oh, no. The tape works.
Yeah.
You don't hear it. You don't hear any music, but you hear the tape running.
Okay, so the motor works.
The motor works. You hit fast forward, it goes. So I know the radio's getting power to it, but it's almost like an amplifier is out. I don't know where the amplifier is in this wacky thing. Is it in the radio? Is it separate component? I have no clue. So now I start looking for fuses. Well, of course, there's no amp fuse. There's just the radio fuse. So now I am truly stuck. I'm thinking, did I just lunch a radio doing a brake job? So somebody can easily bring this car back from my shop for, let's just say, for example, and said the radio worked just fine. Since you did the brake job, the radio doesn't work that well. And now I could take the second theory and saying it was the last thing you touched. Well, I didn't have my meat hooks on the radio anytime during the brake job, so what could it possibly be?
Right.
There you go. There's my rant for the for the afternoon.
Okay, well let me tell you this. There's two things that come to mind. And the first one is this was on my list of things to talk about. I actually had gotten via phone call, telephonic communication.
Yes.
Backlash for the amount of time you took describing your freaking wheel cylinder rebuilds. It's like, what the hell is that guy doing? Well, I was going to call just to talk to him. I
like to capture the spirit of the thing, Reg.
And I said, calm down. This is the way Chris works. I went through a long, protracted explanation, and he's still a friend. He's still a friend of ours, so it's okay. But I did get that phone call this week about that, by the way. And
did I have brevity here?
Yeah.
Did I keep it brief?
That's called payback now that you lost your radio. But let me tell you this. Over the course of the last year, I have lost speakers in 2 cars that just blew. Just went bye-bye for no good reason. And if you remember, just went bad. And, audio wasn't there, and there one day, not there the next. Right. Aftermarket speakers, too, by the way. And if you remember, a number of years ago, my daughter had her Stratus. Came out to the car. No, she had a Stratus.
Stratus?
Dodge Stratus.
Stratus. Yeah. I don't know.
Came out, and the windows were black. I mean, that car had tinted windows, but you saw, like, black. Like, what the heck? Opened the door, and there was a car fire. Like, what? The car was in front of the house all night.
Right.
The left rear speaker got a signal that it shouldn't have gotten with the car shut off, got hot enough to catch fire because I see all the soot and everything on the rear window. It melted out of the deck lid, melted itself into the trunk floor.
Oh my gosh.
Luckily didn't cause the car to ignite and go on any more on fire than it was. And I traced it to the factory amplifier that was under the passenger seat that had gotten wet at one point. And finally, some point years later, decided to just short out and send that errant signal. So, yeah, I've seen myself 3 mysterious audio things go on. And like I said, 2 of my own cars, I had speakers just mysteriously blow. So
just blow up. That is amazing. No, and yeah, that was a problem that was just so unique with the Stratus, with the Cirrus Stratus, whenever those constellations.
I will put pictures of that on. I'll put it on Twitter and on Instagram, which will go on the website as well. I forgot because I that is something that was very, like I said, we looked at it and said this car had a car fire. I mean, literally, see what was on fire, what melted, what burned, and for the rest of that car not to go up was a miracle. It was a miracle. So
it's the truth, and you wonder how cars can catch on fire. Yes, Bill.
Chris, I'm thinking that when you took the car for a test drive, what was the terrain? Was it rough? Did something maybe just jiggle out of the radio, number one? Number two, did you do a previous job that you may have got underneath the dash for something else with the gauges, and maybe you kind of pulled a little bit on a wire connection, and then after this test drive, the connection completely fell out of the one side that operates the radio versus the tape deck?
Always the inspector. Always the inspector.
No, and I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do any job previously, but what I did do yesterday, Bill, is very good. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength or similar wavelength. I did drop the bottom of the dash in front of the steering wheel and inspected the wires there. I did pull the rocker and inspected the wires there. I was thinking the same thing. I pulled the radio out of the console. I had it pretty much on the console, on the center console, and I checked the plugs, and all the connections were all there, and nothing looked like it was tampered with. So
you have four speakers in that car?
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't hear any buzz or nothing out of any of them? Not even
nothing. And the funny thing was, and this is something that I didn't bring up, if you fast forwarded the tape, all of a sudden the display would come up and it would say 230. That was it. Wouldn't say 231 after a minute, and it wouldn't change. It just came up, boop, 230, and I'm thinking, code? What could this be?
It's a 230. No, as a technician, the first thing I think of, I always try to think of like the gross walking in the room kind of thing. Either all four speakers blew, which is unlikely.
Really?
Well, unlikely. I'll give you that. But possible. Or I should say probable. Or it's a power failure, an amplifier problem inside the unit, which is a lot more likely. So you know what you got to do? You got to take this thing apart on the bench. You got to get in there with a light, look at your solder connections, see if you see anything that's obviously fried or faulted. There may be a fuse on the board inside. There may be, sometimes PCBs use a board.
Very true.
And then the next thing you need to do is go on eBay and find used radio for 90 Farron.
Already looked. $100, no big deal.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, that's my fear, is actually buying a radio, putting the new radio in, or the different radio in this case, and then having the same symptoms. So the thing I'm going to do is probably pop those plugs out of the back of the radio and just put a meter on them to see if I'm getting any sort of current coming from it. That'll happen probably today if I have time, or during the week.
You're not going to see current. You're not going to see current. Really what you want to do is you want to use a scope because you want to see frequency. You want to see that's what you get.
But I was wondering if I get any sort of activity at all coming from the plugs. If I do, then I'll know that it's the radio. If I don't get any sort of reaction electrically, current-wise, then I know it's maybe a problem within the car, not the radio.
You could get some millivolts out of it, but probably the way to check that with scope. But anyway, we'll go on with that. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that.
Mm-hmm. I will totally keep you posted.
So before I forget, let's get this one out of the way. Bill, I know that there's always an event with a lot of cars that have a lot of radios that work and some pretty good stereos that you're involved with. There's some news this year about this radio gathering. You want to break it?
Yeah. So the annual Children's Hot Dog Party car show at the beach, which last year we changed it to display on the bay. It's not taking place this year, and it's not taking place at first. I didn't want to be reckless, and I debated it, and then I said, you know what, let me at least attempt to file for the permit so I have it in case things change over the next 60 days.
Right.
And no sooner do I make the application and I get a notation from the street activity permits office of the city that they told me they denying the permit this year because of COVID-19.
Right.
So they actually did me a favor where I don't have to make that decision. Like, how come we're not having the show? And, other people are doing things. And why don't we just have the car show without the kids? And it's not fair. That was always about the children.
Right.
And I didn't want to be reckless where, as much as you tell the kids, social distance and you can't do this, you can't do that, they'll be all over one another. And then next thing you know, 4 or 5 days later, second week of school, what happened? What's this rash of all of a sudden this virus? Oh, I was at the Malibu car show. And, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And okay. I didn't commit where I didn't chase down the sponsors, because this year I was going to abbreviate it. I was going to get some of us. We were just going to put some money up and then take some money out of the treasury and just have the event anyway without sponsor support. And I was good with that. And the guys, that wanted to be involved were good with it. So we're passing this year.
Okay. Hey, okay. That's you're not the only one. And but I will say this: there's been this outcropping of smaller get-togethers now. I just heard about one in Baldwin. There's one on Lawson Boulevard in Oceanside, and there was another one I think that's out this way, out at Nassau County. I'm sure that they're going on all over the place. Guys are getting together. Little groups are saying, "Hey, let's do our own thing." We'll meet. Like one of them is at a place in the back parking lot. Another one is, I think, in a train station. It's in the train station parking lot, which is kind of off the beaten path in Oceanside. It's down, on Lawson Boulevard. Guys are doing that, and they're just saying, they're taking matters into their own hands, I think, and I'm sure they're not getting. There's no permits involved. They're just gathering. So. Right. Just to say, that's what's going on. I don't know about in anybody else's neighborhoods, but I could have at first just had the cars, but then it just, how these get. Next thing you know, you got cars on top of cars and traffic, and what are we doing here? And then the neighborhood's up in arms, and I'd have to get the petition anyway signed that I'm having the event. That would have probably maybe had opposition. I don't know. But it's something I don't have to worry about. Right.
I mean, I'm always challenged, believe me. But, actually, they're doing me a favor, the city, because you know how much work's involved.
Oh, sure.
And
sure.
Work. I mean, after 22 years now, I think, 23 years.
Yeah. Well, I know this. I talked to a friend of ours, our friend Steve, who does the... Chris, I don't know if you got to see that. They do, it's on the road motorcycle. They do motorcycle training in the parking lot outside of the radio station.
Yes, I have. I've seen it. And it's
they
great.
Were offline for a while, but I heard on WHPC the commercial was playing again. So I was in touch with Steve. He says, yeah, we're doing the classes again. Suffolk Community College didn't want him to do it and gave him a lot of flack. And he says, hey, we're outside. He goes, we're on motorcycles. How much more social distancing can you get? Everybody's riding in helmets,
Right.
And then I asked him, I said, well, you do have a classroom, a segment of this, don't you? And he says, well, we do. But now what we do is we do that in the parking lot. Everybody brings a lawn chair and they sit 6 feet apart and we have our classroom discussion outside.
That sounds great.
Nassau has agreed to do that, so of course I'll play his promo on the bottom of the hour. I'm going to he's a good friend, so he's and he's also looking to maybe start the restoration on his GTO. We were talking about that, and I said, oh boy, here we go. Here I am getting to the end of mine. I'm at the final phase of rebuilding and stuff like that. I spent the day yesterday doing it. Now he's thinking it out of how to start. I'm like, wow, you talk about bookends. So
wow.
I said, keep me in the loop. I want to remember all that pain. And actually, it's fun in the beginning thinking about things. It's when you start seeing that things aren't compatible or the checks you have to write, that's when it stops being fun.
What year is his GTO?
I believe it's it's an 8 or a 9. I think it may be a 69. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice 400 4-speed car.
Original mill?
Yeah. But he's thinking about, maybe going with a stroker. Of course, his friends are telling him to put an LS in it. And I said, no, keep it Pontiac,
Yeah.
He's looking for a rear end, so if you hear about a 12-bolt posi, he wants
Well, who is it nowadays?
I know. So, we discussed all the ramifications of all the aftermarket parts and possibilities. So, he's starting that project, which is kind of interesting. It's nice, to see that happen.
Legit GTO?
Yes, 242 car, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Or was it 247?
That'd be nice to paint the carousel red or orbit orange and turn it to a Judge.
Well, you could. His car now is like a bluish. It's a light blue, which is a nice color for that car. It does look nice. I don't know. We didn't even talk about what his plans are for that, so I don't know. But and I know the boys of the UD, they're getting involved with stuff. Dougie and Johnny, they're down there. They're still they're staying cool as usual. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're hanging in there. They're holding up their part of the borough, so that's good.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right, we have the other half of the borough holding up the other half right here on the show here.
That's right.
with Billy G.
Yeah.
Working, Bill. How is it working out of that one-car garage? Is it you got to be like a contortionist, huh?
Well, I told you I did the starter in there a couple of weeks ago. I told you the starter, and I ended up treating myself now to a new floor jack for the next project. But yes, but you know what? I took a motor out of my 66 Corvette in that garage. I backed the 66 in. I had a big block. I pulled the 427 out to freshen it up. And, so I did leaf springs in that car on the Nova, the Note 70 I had years ago. I've done headers, traction bars.
Necessity's a mother.
Amazing.
As I'm putting my car back together in a shop on a lift, I'm working on it yesterday, and I was doing the rear bumper assembly, and I was in a precarious position. And it was hard to get at these bolts, and I said, "Wait a minute, idiot! Raise the car. It's on the lift. Just lift it up 2 feet." and then I think back to when I built it in my 1.5 car garage. Same thing. Everything on the floor. The car, the highest it got was as high as my jack stands would get it, and everything went in that venue, because that's how I did it all my life.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good thing. I think I talked to some of the younger guys that were around the shop yesterday and said, it's like paying your dues. If you learn how to do it the hard way, then doing it the easy way, you almost don't. There's times I don't even do it the easy way anymore because I'm so used to doing it the hard way. Now the hard way isn't hard anymore, I said, you get spoiled.
Getting up off the ground is hard. That's what's hard.
Oh,
a couple of weeks ago, though, you two guys hit a nerve with me that I said, now I actually make sure that I don't want to be the guy to put the scratch in a fender or
right.
So I actually, if I had a screwdriver, I went back to the toolbox, and I wouldn't put the screwdriver in my pocket to go get a wrench. I put the screwdriver back in the toolbox because I'd be the guy walking by the car turning because somebody called me or the phone rang, and then next thing I know, I got it. So because of your conversations of you don't want to be the guy like I put the scratch in the car, that hidden. So I'm very, very careful.
I'll tell you what, if you're listening and you've done that, I almost did it yesterday. I had to do something with my other car. I had to move my regular car so that Mike could move something out of the way. And, I clipped my keys back on my belt like I always do. And before that, I had left them in the office. And then when I went past my own car, I heard the key fob touch the paint, touch the car. And said, okay, take these right off, throw them over there by the toolbox. It's like, even though it was the plastic part, it said we're safe. But so if you've got a story like that, you want to share it, now's the time to get in touch with us at 516-256-9510. Because that's, like you said, I am very, very guilty of that. I mean, my right rear pocket is like, that's my vault, screwdriver, wrench. I put ratchets in there. I mean, and then little small stuff. I'm like a dog. I always walk around with stuff in my mouth. Like, what are you doing? Get that! You don't know where that's been. I'm like, I know where it was. It was under the car. It's just a greasy wire. Don't worry.
Yeah, and even the brake job, doing the brake job on the little car. I got the gloves on, and your hands are constantly they have brake fluid on them.
Yeah.
And you can't touch a finish. You can't touch anything. So I had shop rags everywhere on all four corners of the car, on shelves, everywhere, within reach. Just reach and grab a dry shop rag and just wipe it down, because you know what's going to happen. You're going to place that oven mitt of a hand on your finish, and then there, it's gone.
Yeah, brake fluid and antifreeze, those things are very, very slippery. You gotta get it off. Yeah, and gloves can only go so far, because once those gloves get totally, I mean, I've actually sat there and I use surgical gloves. I don't use them as much as other people do, but I've actually found myself with some of the dirtier jobs taking a rag and wiping the surgical gloves clean so I could go back to
I do it too.
Surface.
Yeah, it's tough to work on a car now with naked hands. I have to have the surgical gloves on.
To me, that's my go-to. I'm just, I was using the weather strip adhesive yesterday, and I had it on 3 fingers. And one of the guys had his girlfriend, and they were doing a brake job on her Jeep, and she mentioned something. I said, "Oh yeah," I said, "This will take a few days." I said, "The skin will wear off." I said, "It's no big deal."
It's funny you should mention weather stripping adhesive. I just used a little bit of it on one of the bellows on the drive axle of the LeBaron. It had a little slit right at the base. I swear to God, and the grease was just starting to come out of it. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm doing a brake job on this thing, and now I have to do an axle? I'm like, oh. I was getting completely berserk. I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home. I'm going to give this a shot. Right. I had 1 tube of weather stripping adhesive that was just about ready to just completely turn into a solid rubber block.
Mine did.
I cut it in half. I found a little, maybe a dollop of it. I found of weather stripping adhesive that was still in good shape, and I cleaned that surface up on the bellows. I cleaned that crack up literally with all kinds of naphtha, everything I could to get that as clean as I could. And I ran that bead of weather stripping adhesive around it. I checked when I did the danger drive, and I came back with the car, and while I was still complaining about the radio, I got under the car and took a look to see if there was like a spray of grease. There wasn't. I was like, I think I got a little bit of time left on this thing.
I'm very curious. Keep us in touch on how that works, because I've used every boot on the market, and my go-to now, if a boot splits, I just buy an axle because it's enough.
Oh, no, I'm totally with you on this, completely.
Yeah, but I want to know about that.
Yeah, you said weather stripping adhesive, and you completely touched nerve, because I was like, that's why this job took so long, because there were so many other things that needed to be paid attention to, and that's why it took so long. So this was one of those things. I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm gonna keep that axle in for 1,000 miles more before I go get another one.
Right. Yeah,
I know I'm going to have to do it. Right. It'll be a winter project. I know I'm going to have to do it, but it just makes me berserk when you just see, you're going to have to buy a new axle. You know that grease is going to go all over the place, and it looks like it just started. I'm like, no, I'm going to fix this.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to fix, Chris. We're going to fix our bottom of the hour break, but first I need to know if we have an honor group of the hour today.
Oh, we certainly do, Ray. The Motormouth Radio honor group of the hour this week. If you found the elusive French fry, that's right. You cleaned up the car and you were like, son of a gun, what is this green thing that looks like a pencil? Oh, no. That is the French fry. If you found it in your chair, in your seat, if you found it in the rug, or if you found it in your pants, you're part of the Motormouth Radio honor group of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Take it away, my brother.
All right, very good. Well, on that note, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break, and we will be back with more Motormouth Radio with our guest, Billy Velvet. Billy G's with us today. So for Chris Switzer, Ray Guarino, we will be back in a bit on 90.3 WHPC. This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Lynbrook and Oceanside, who remind you that New York State law says you always have the right to choose which shop you want to have your car fixed at. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services: 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. And yes, se habla español. More information is available by calling 516-593-0920 or visiting online at celebritychasecollision.com.
This show is brought to you by On the Road Again Motorcycle School. Hi, I'm Steve Bertolini, the president of On the Road Again Motorcycle School, and I'd like to tell you that life is short, so live a little by learning how to ride a motorcycle. Classes are available from beginner riders to advanced, including private lessons. Lessons are offered on the campuses of Nassau Community College and Suffolk Community College, also offering the license waiver class, where you can skip the DMV. More information about On the Road Again Motorcycle School can be found by calling 631-862-RIDE. That's 631-862-RIDE. Or online at LRN2ride.com.
Shake off the realities of the day, broaden your musical horizons, and embrace the diversity every Monday afternoon at 5 for 2 hours of Revelations. The show offers a potently unique collection of music with an emphasis on themes and rock rarities, an occasional tour de force of blues and soul, mixed with compelling sets of folk and folk rock. I'm Steve K, and I've got the perfect soundtrack for your drive home every Monday afternoon at 5 on Revelations, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Okay, we are back on Motormouth Radio. Ray Guarino, Chris Switzer, and we're on with Billy G today, talking about all sorts of things automotive, and your calls at 516-256-9510. So, Bill, we were going to drop a story about. Well, first, let me drop this. Ford Motor Company confirmed that it plans to end production on the Lincoln by the end of 2020, the Continental.
Really?
Get this, though. Yeah, in 2021, the 2021 model year, the car will be offered to the market in China before going away forever. So it'll be another year of it if you're in Asia. Ford issued a statement saying Lincoln is investing in growth segments and the brand will feature a full portfolio of SUVs, including one that's fully electric in the future. But the full-size Lincoln, as we know it, is going to be El Muerta.
Really? Did you hear, speaking of news, did you hear that Fiat Chrysler, Peugeot are all merging and they will conclude with a new name? It's going to be called Stellantis.
No, I didn't hear that.
Did you hear about this? Do you know about this? Did you hear about this? Do you know about this? Yeah. Yeah, it says FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, and Peugeot have announced that Stellantis, it's Stellantis, will be the new name of its combined automotive group. And the word is, it's Latin, so it has a Latin root, and it means to brighten with stars.
Wow.
So, yeah, and they're also thinking about dropping the Chrysler name completely for this Stellantis. So keep an eye out, because it may happen as early as 2021.
Really?
So, well, there's your automotive news from Connecticut.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, no more Chrysler. How's that?
Wow. So no more Lincoln, no more Chrysler. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, well, it's amazing. If you think about it, the combination of the fact that not many people are driving cars anymore. I was going to say vehicles, but not cars. There's so much demand for SUVs nowadays that the American sedan has truly, its days are almost numbered at this point.
Right.
Because of this onslaught of SUVs. Everybody I know now drives an SUV that at one time drove a car. Cars are you don't even see them on the road anymore. You see like hybrid cars, like, the Subarus that are huge. You see the Volvos that are huge. They look like Volvos, but they're Volvo wagons, and they happen to have grown into SUVs. Yeah. So it really is amazing what people are preferring now.
The only fleet cars you see with the Uber and that market, but you can actually see them building a generic type of transportation vehicle for that type of work. People squeeze into these Camrys, share a ride, but if you go back to the old Checker Marathons, that was like a generic type of car, had space for. I could see one of the manufacturers actually creating that transportation mode vehicle, just the everyman's car.
Yeah, no, it's true. And Checker was, to my own humble opinion, was way ahead of its time, because it was simple to build, simple to maintain. It was strong. it was, to me, they were great cars. It really is a shame that the technology passed them by. But as far as I would drive a Checker now.
Yeah, originally, I don't know what their power plant was, but they ended up.
It was all Chevy.
Yeah, small block Chevys.
I remember the small block Chevy in it, but was it always Chevy?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Okay.
always a Chevy 6. Or I think at one time, what did Checker use
And I put
earlier?
a small block Chevy in it.
Yeah, I always remember Checker using a Chevy drivetrain. But I'm wondering if they built their own motors or if they went with a Continental motor. Not Lincoln Continental, but there was a company called Continental, I think, right? And they produced engines, or was it Lycoming? One of them. There was an engine manufacturer, and I think it was called Continental, and they produced engines. And then when they went out of business, I think that's when Checker went to a Chevrolet drivetrain. But even using a Chevy 6, they were indestructible.
Yeah.
And that to me was one of the greatest cars. And I always said, if you see it as a taxi cab, you know it's got to be durable.
Absolutely.
If you see them plying the streets of New York City and getting bashed around and dented and kicked around and still running, you knew that the cars were fantastic. And I've always been a big fan. I always wanted to get my dad one for his birthday.
Oh, yeah.
My father would have been the perfect Checker driver. Out of my way, crash. Out of my way. That would have been my dad.
They were pretty indestructible. Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to get a call, but it's not going through for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm
Try
trying
it again.
Christian's going to keep trying. I'm doing some, whatever I can check, I'm checking, but everything is looking the same as it had last time. So I don't know what the
Of course,
problem is.
this adds to the technological nightmare that was this week because, of course, my phone decided to update its software without me knowing, literally minutes before we went on the air. And now I'm just watching it. I'm just watching it giggle at me. That's pretty much it.
Right.
But please, yes, give us a call, 516-256-9510. Write it down.
Well, he sent a picture of what looks to be some kind of a smaller car, like a Cavalier size, with a transverse mounted V6 3.2 liter. This thing looks crazy. Oh my word. Somebody is guys are doing some crazy stuff out there where engine swap's concerned. It's ridiculous.
I had left. There was I was listening to a local radio show here in Connecticut, and the host was talking to another local radio show host.
Look at your phone again.
That worked in the afternoon. No, nothing.
Nothing.
And at least nothing so far. And I've come to realize how old we are because the guy said, my first car was a Plymouth Horizon, and it had manual steering. Boy, were my arms strong that summer. And I'm like, a Plymouth Horizon with manual steering?
Yeah, I've never heard of that. Yeah.
It's the lightest car in the market in 1980.
But still, yeah.
So yeah, but I felt really old because I'm thinking my first car was a 63 Cadillac.
Yeah.
So still waiting on those calls.
Right.
516-256-9510. I'm giving the right number out, am I? 516-256-9510.
Right.
Please give us a call. Make sure our phones still work here at this.
Bill, you got in touch with me yesterday about a Ford issue, which is pretty interesting. If you want to talk about that, because I'm kind of stoked about this one. It's a cool deal.
1965 Mercury Monterey Marauder with a 390 4-speed bench seat, bumper to bumper, beautiful condition car belonging to a friend of mine who the car sits, and I keep my one of my cars. It's an 8-car garage in the neighborhood. Wow.
Right.
So I keep one of my cars there with his other car, and then the Marauder's in there too. So I'm basically there. I keep an eye on the house, his mom, and everything. And so when he's out of town, he lives down south. He comes back and forth. So I rotate the car. You know, I told him, I said, the car should be rotated, started, and everything. So I said, Bill, whatever you think. So the car set so long, I got it running during the winter, and I noticed that the float, the gas was pouring out of it's a tri-power car. So center carburetor, back carburetor, gas was pouring out. I said, you know what, let me tap these. Let me see if I work out some of this sludge. So I got the carburetor, I got the car to run without the overflow issue, but then the car set again. He came home and the car set again. I said, have you started the Marauder? He said, no, I got to start. And then he got back to the same issue. So I said, Danny, my treat for you is I'm going to have these carburetors done. Could I do them? Yeah, but you know what? When you don't do something all the time, you lose the sense of how to do it. I mean, the only thing I can do without instructions nowadays is build an AMT model or a Revell model, I guess. But other than that, so I'm turning it over to somebody that does carburetors, and he happens to be on the screen right now.
Yeah, Chris. You know, Bill, I was going to say, that's a perfect project for you because you take one apart, you have two more. You know, it's like you have plenty of reference. They're all the same. They're Holley 2300s, and the middle one doesn't even have a choke. They took the choke out, so whoever drove that car was they were really on a race circuit or they were in a warm climate. So, you know, you have a fuel bowl, a metering block, and a body. And it's two jets, a power valve, and the outside carbs don't even have power valves, probably. It's just a matter of being, you know, working clean and having the right kind of, as Chris knows from owning a Triumph and the misery that ensued with his SU car, or the Zenith carburetors on that thing.
Yes, Zenith Strombergs, yeah.
The stuff that can be found in those bowls after it sits long enough is...
Yeah. My concern was at first, you know, knowing that it was a Ford, I didn't know if I was going to find Carters when I took the air cleaner off in the winter. But I was surprised that I was happy to see that they were Harleys.
I expected Motorcrafts almost. I didn't know what to expect, but Motorcraft wouldn't have surprised me. And then the Harleys were a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. So, you know, it's funny. You're so used to seeing the carburetors the other way. Ford, they actually look like they're on backwards.
I know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to get the number off the flutes. I had to basically go in with the camera and take them backwards, and came up with a 3-digit number versus the 4 that you normally see stamped on the other side. So those numbers I sent to you. Pleasantly surprised last night because I knew it was going to get the juices flowing. That you had to know. Before you went to bed, you had to know.
I did. You're right, and I'll show you how I knew.
But now, Ray, Billy, I would love to know. This thing has got three carbs.
Yeah, 3 2-barrels.
This is my Bible from Standard Motors. This is
what does that say?
It is the carburetor application guide.
Look at that.
Ah, wow.
FC95, Joe knows this well, carburetor kit and component application. You can look up anything in here by car and by engine, which is what I did, or you can cross-reference to kits and floats. And I just wanted to see if they were, my first thought was, okay, is that engine with that carburetor configuration original for a 65 Mercury? And that book confirmed that, yes, it was from 57. Let's see. It said, I have the page bookmarked. It's actually from 57 to 64 is the application. Mm-hmm. So, and it gives you the list of all the original carburetor numbers, and that's how you know if you have an original part. And you're right. I had to know. It was getting late, but I said I gotta figure this out.
But now, how do you, if you have 3 carburetors like that, how do you sync them? Like on my Zenith Strombergs, you had a small little device that had like a tube. I'm sorry?
That's called a unison.
Unison, yes. And you were able to sync them by putting the cup over the inlet of the carburetor, and you pretty much synced up the carburetor by that little red marker that was in the tube.
Right.
How would you do that with a set of three carburetors?
Doing tri-power is like doing dual quads, like any multi-carburetor setup. And in these setups, the center carburetor is the one I mentioned didn't have a choke. That's the one that the car starts, idles, and drives off of normally. The back and front carburetor, they come in either by a vacuum signal, which these don't, because it would have the big dash pots on the side, or, as I'm guessing in this case, a mechanical staged linkage. So in other words, when you ride off that middle two barrel for, say, however you set it, but it could be typically anywhere from about half throttle could be to three-quarter throttle, and then mechanically it connects the end two carburetors that come in, so you go from 2 to 6 barrels at that point.
Got it.
Same thing with the dual quads on my car. I have a staged progressive linkage, so I drive off of one carburetor, and then once the throttle hits a certain point, it kicks the other one in.
So they're not running at the same time or at the same same sucking ability. Let's put it that way.
That was the thing that people did. The mistake they made with Pontiacs back in the day. They'd find a tri-power intake, but the original tri-power carburetors are hard to find, and the reason is the end two carburetors don't have metering idle provisions. So there's no transfer slot in the base, which what that does is it lets a slight amount of fuel and air enter that carburetor at an idle, so the car will idle. So on the tri-power cars, you didn't want that. You were just dumping fuel into the intake and loading it up. So guys would use regular Rochester 2 barrels, which were made for idle circuit, and it would never run right. And they'd say, oh, tri-power is junk, you can't make it run right. No, you just don't know how to set it up is the real thing. So again, a little bit of research and a little bit of going through the books and learning goes a long way when you're playing with something like that.
Chris, this car has, because the carburetors, it's on a Ford intake manifold, but with the gas pedal being on the driver's side, the linkage is such that as you press, it's pulling the carburetor backwards, but it's a Z linkage because all of the mechanisms on the carburetor are on the right-hand side. So it's a really unique linkage on the car.
Really? So the linkage has to go...
It goes
from
across,
the driver's side and then across?
Yeah, between the distributor, because it's a Ford, so the distributor's in the front. The linkage crosses over in front of the front carburetor and then pulls in the opposite direction.
Oh, wow.
It's a physics experiment.
Yeah, it sure is. Holy smokes.
Yeah. The other thing that Ford did was they'd mount 2 4-barrels on a car, and they would mount them backwards. I've seen it with
really.
So the linkage had to come in on the right side to pull those throttles, and it was, I mean, Chevy with the DZ motors, they had a multi-carburation, a cross ram setup. I mean, there's been all sorts of wacky Z bars and linkages through the years with carburetors. It's because I had a similar situation with the TR6 because it was sent to America and everything was on the left-hand side, steering wheel, gas pedals, everything like that. Because the car was originally British, everything was on the right-hand side. So the linkage you had for your gas pedal went through the firewall and then went across right at the battery and then went over to the carburetors. Right. So I was familiar with that, the bushings and everything that wear out in that linkage, and they do. So it was. So I'm kind of familiar with that sort of thing. But to have what you were talking about, Bill, is just that sounds pretty wacky to me.
Yeah, it is. It's and it's nice because the car is different. I mean, with the Chrysler 300, this will give it a run for the money with that. It's got perfect chrome, the bumpers, the body. It's just a. They ran that car in NASCAR, the Mirage. The Mirage was the fastback. So let me ask you this, Bill: is that a replica or is that a bona fide off the track? Was that a real race car? No, that's a legit 394 speed car. No, I'm saying does it have race provenance or was it lettered and all as a replica or as a tribute? He painted it as a tribute to the business. As I sent you that photo. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wow. And what year is it again, Bill?
65.
Oh, so it's the square one.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, with those
Square. Yeah.
Yeah, because the is it a fastback or it's not?
Fastback.
It is
Marauder.
a fastback.
It's the Monterey Marauder, so it's the fastback.
Right.
Now, didn't those Monterey's in those years have that retractable rear window?
Yeah, exactly. That was the Park Avenue, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was called it had a name. It was called the Breezeway design.
When I was a kid, there was someone on the block, and now come to think of it, this family, I wish I knew more about them now. I mean, I'm talking about 50 years ago, 60 years ago. But they had one of those. I remember the father would pull down the block, and you'd get out, you'd take your Pensy Pinky and your stickball back, you move off, car, get off the street. And as he got past the house, he'd always roll, bring that window down. Like, wow. As a little kid, even that's cool. Mother drove an amphi car, one of those jerky things, the amphibious cars.
Really?
And the son had a 67 fastback Mustang that he ended up racing. He ended up becoming a Snap-on dealer too, I found out later on. And I remember when I was about, 10, 12, 13, probably like 11 or 12, I guess he had moved out of the house and the parents were cleaning the garage and threw out a bunch of stuff that was on that Mustang. Coilover shocks, a spun moon, fuel tank, and a bunch of, and I garbage picked all of it. And of course I nailed it all onto my go-kart. So I had a go-kart with a spun moon tank on it, coilover shocks that didn't work, steering wheel. That was all the stuff off his Mustang.
At the time, that stuff was junk.
Boy, if you could just go back, that was a Ford family, man. They were really, like I said, he had become a Snap-on dealer.
Let me tell you about that sliding rear window. So in 66, my buddies were running a car at Freeport, and this is in 1972. They were running a C-Class at Freeport. I was still a National Speedway guy, so I was doing my own thing. Meanwhile, Saturday night, these guys were going out to Freeport. So the tow car was, somebody bought Mrs. Gleason's old Mercury Monterey with the Park Avenue window.
Right.
So towing it out to Freeport one night, they were concerned, is that the safety chain dragging off the tow bar? So they said, well, let me pull over, check out. Well, you don't have to pull over. Put the back window down and grab so-and-so by his ankles, and he'll slide across the deck lid, trunk lid, make sure it's still not dragging as they go 40 miles an hour down Sunrise Highway,
Yeah.
So very practical, those windows.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
I wonder what the failure rate was. And I know Mercury's in the 50s used a hydraulic actuation for the power windows.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. There was actually fluid going to those windows, but I wonder if it had to be electric by the 60s.
Continental had them. Those old Lincolns of the 58, 59 had those back windows too.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody in the neighborhood had one, and that was always the big thing, watching that window.
Yeah.
But it was power. It was electric.
And if I remember, the roof had like a cove over, like a coping, so it kind of had an awning over it.
Yeah.
So I guess that if it did rain or there was a mist, you might not get wet right off the bat.
Yeah, and it had those West bumperettes in the front.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dagmars.
Dagmars.
There you go.
Yeah. All the stuff that no one under 40 ever heard of before, guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say, all the kids are going, what?
Right.
What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, I know. Crazy stuff. Well, folks, we're getting towards the end of the show. We got about 6 minutes left. Anything you want to throw out there, get it out. And we will, because we're getting short on time.
Right. No, it's funny because I've been just messing with the phone and trying to figure out, we have one bar.
Right.
For some reason, we have one bar.
Yeah.
So just add to the technological misery that has been this week.
So you got the upgrade on your the apps, but you got a downgrade on your service.
Pretty much it. We're going to have to figure. This is going to be one of those issues we're going to have to tend to during the week. But we will figure this out one way or another. And that's what I love about this show, because we're constantly figuring out things. It's a nonstop problem.
Yeah. Well, that happens to me every once in a while. I notice I can't open Twitter or Instagram, like on the phone, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm home. This should work. And then what I do is I go into the Wi-Fi, and it just wants the Wi-Fi to be reestablished. I just, it's connected, but I kill it, reestablish it, and boom, then everything comes back. So who knows? I don't know. You're in the land of the East Coast fruits and nuts, so anything can happen up there.
Yeah, it's true, because I'm looking and everything looks to be okay. It's just the goofy land we live in. The goofy. Maybe it's like you had a good point, Ray, when you said it could be the heat. Maybe it is.
It affects. Did you see the pictures from the sun that they had taken this week off the orbiter? They got actual photos of the sun and the sunspots. They said that how far away they were, pretty damn far. But you have to be pretty damn far. And it made me just start thinking about this big ball in sky of the sun, and like, boy, it's cold in space. And to think of this thing that's up there, that hot, that ferocious, you can't get within a jillion gigawatt miles of it.
Right.
Where did it come from, and how does it stay like that? It just, these are the things I'm thinking of, Wow.
Did you think of this before? Did you think of this before you put the GTO together, or after you put the GTO together?
It was before. Yeah, it was before.
I gotta get him another set of carburetor numbers so he can occupy time better.
Bill, listen, I tell you, sometimes I find myself thinking about 3 of these things at once, and then I'm like, all right, stop. Clear slate, erase 2, go back to 1. But sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to almost defer yourself from what you're doing so that you can do it. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
I know exactly what you mean, buddy.
Yeah.
The other night I had a blurb from work at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. I said, you know what? It's something that can wait till Monday. I got up at 20 to 2. I said, let me just go online and see what bank institution this is, looking for information.
Yeah.
Because I had to renew the password anyway.
Right.
Now it's 2:45. So what am I doing?
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there watching repeats of Jay Leno's Garage and eating Cheerios.
Oh yeah,
that's how I'm decompressing.
I was sleeping, so
I'm watching Tom Cotter go through a whole boatload of stored AC Cobras,
right,
and eating a sandwich.
Well, I'll tell you
at 2 o'clock in the morning.
We're going to be kicking off here in a few minutes. I'm still going to bet. I still haven't made the final arrangements with Artie Schilling, but hopefully we'll get him on the show next week, and we'll talk to Artie from Artie's Party, and or one of the other guests who's up in the air who hasn't dropped in. I guess people are doing. Everybody's summer plans are in total chaos. So
yeah.
Well,
but I appreciate you having me on today. This was nice.
Anytime,
thank you, Bill.
It's our pleasure, and hang out because we'll talk a little bit.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and we're going to have a better Malba show next year in 2021. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, we'll be back. Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
So fellas, for Chris Switzer and Billy G, this is Ray Guarino, Motormouth Radio, signing off. We'll see you again next week. And Chris, what do we say?
Don't follow us home, and don't follow us to the Malba show this year.
Right. Thanks, Bill, on 90.3 WHPC.